Hi guys, this is Dr. Frajana. Hope you guys are doing amazing. Like always, it's such an honor to connect with you. Today, I want to talk about trauma bonding and dysfunction in extended family dynamics in first, second, and third generations within South Asian and Middle Eastern families and other homogeneous cultures. Again, I want to talk about trauma bonding and dysfunction in extended family dynamics, particularly in first, second, and third generations within South Asian and Middle Eastern families and other homogeneous cultures. Often, many families have dysfunctional blinders on. Families have attached to each other through trauma bonding. Such individuals lived in these dynamics for many years, many generations, where they themselves were traumatized by exclusion, favoritism, competitiveness, hot and cold dynamics, right? So if you behaved, quote unquote, they welcomed you. If you, quote unquote, didn't behave, they shunned you out. Like basically they excluded you. Elders were not held accountable. Family members were made to say sorry and let bygones be bygones for the greater good. Basically, dysfunction was just swept under the rug. Such families grew up in extreme trauma bonding where their feelings were invalidated and no one was held accountable. Relationships were extremely hot and cold in the name of construed, and please, I want to emphasize, construed religious beliefs and cultural norms. So what is trauma bonding? Trauma bonds are emotional bonds with an individual that arise, and it can just not be just with individuals, but it can be family members, it can be a group of people that arise from a reoccurring cyclical pattern of abuse. And the abuse can be in the form of exclusion, silent treatment due to speaking up against the wrong in the family or manipulation, gossiping, competitiveness. It's perpetuated by intermittent reinforcement through rewards and punishments. In such families, you were rewarded for allowing dysfunction, staying silent, or retreating after speaking up. And you were given the cold shoulder if you spoke up or considered disrespectful. Simultaneously, however, you were showered with lavish gifts during occasions, hence opening the door to constant discrepancies. Like, wait a second. Are my family members nice or are they not nice? I'm very confused. So dysfunction is so normalized, such family members seriously think hurting one another, favoritism, pinning family members against each other is normal behavior. Making underhanded comments about skin color, about weight is normal behavior. To top it off, they pretend like nothing happened at the next event. Again, to top it off, they pretend like nothing happened at the next event. According to such dysfunctional families, people are supposed to hurt each other, exclude, gossip, belittle, and then pout, and then be okay at the next event. Sadly, in these dynamics, family members gaslight and continue to sweep things under the rug, and then make you the bad guy if you try to hold anyone accountable. Family members' behaviors are so extreme, causing discrepancy between what is right and what is wrong. It becomes so excessive that it causes discrepancy between your view of their character and other people around you, just humanity as a whole. You're like, wait a second, right? Some people develop trust issues, right? You are unable to distinguish between dysfunctional and normal behavior with time. There is such a disconnect. The environment predicts what their current personality and behavior will be like. They will fully be there during funerals, show love and security but exclude you and treat you like you don't exist at weddings. Again, causing discrepancy between your view of their character. This is where the trauma bonding occurs. Wait, are they nice? Are they not nice? And the cycle keeps being repeated. But understand, this is not a you problem, right? There's nothing wrong with you. They are disconnected to themselves. They are unaware of the separate personalities that they have at different events. It's really scary. They're disconnected to the various events. They almost act robotic-like at distinct events. If you see them at weddings, they act zombie-like in their little cliques, right? Acting with acting the way they learn to act from the past generation, where they're excluding and gossiping and there's that competitiveness. Then they act like martyrs at funerals and then saviors at family crises. It's hard to distinguish if they're genuine or not. They basically don't see their own patterns because they are so immersed in it. They seriously don't understand the concept of being held accountable for toxic behavior, for their behavior, for disrespect, because dysfunction has been so normalized. This is what they saw their parents do. This is what they saw other family members do, the first generation, basically. So what are some underlying reasons? Firstly, such individuals have unresolved issues within themselves that they need to unpack. Next, there is no accountability held because the elderly or authority figure roles basically got away with anything, right? You were taught to not question them. So that was part of the reason. And again, let's just get over it because for the greater good. Let's keep allowing and enabling the dysfunction. So there was that mentality. Next, they are disconnected from themselves. As I mentioned, they are disconnected from themselves because of the years of these types of behaviors being normalized. Next, as I mentioned, trauma bonding has occurred. As I mentioned, trauma bonds are emotional bonds with an individual or group dynamic that arise from reoccurring cyclical patterns of abuse with intermittent reinforcement through rewards and punishment. So there's that, the cycle, right? Wait, I thought they loved me. Oh, wait a sec, I'm so confused. So there's that trauma bonding. So some reminders. You are either part of the problem or part of the solution. Decide wisely. So you can be part of this dynamic or be part of the solution and not pass it on to your kids. Next, you are dealing with, remind yourself that you are dealing with unhealthy people, right? This is what they saw, right? This is what they saw. If you do speak up, realize that they'll most likely put it back on you, right? So you can decide to not participate. And if you do speak up and move on, right? Don't expect any behaviors to change. It happens, it's great if they're getting therapy, if they're getting the help they need, but choose wisely when you're going to participate and when you're, in the sense of speaking up, and then just don't immerse yourself into this very, very toxic dynamic. Next, remember who they were raised by. So go back and reflect on who were their parents, who did they live with, which kind of household did they grow up in, right? Are they in therapy? Did they get the help they needed to grow as an individual? No, if not, then just again, remember who they were raised by. And then assess if they are getting the help they need. And then see how much of these family members you will allow into your life. Next, they are in a cyclical trauma bonding situation. They are stuck. Remind yourself of that. Next, remind yourself that they are not held accountable for dysfunction. It's been normalized. They need to learn what was their part in it. Furthermore, realize the generation gap. The first generation may be trying to fit in, not become obsolete, connect with their children, stay young at the expense of their values. So they don't hold themselves accountable or the second generation accountable. This may be due to the fact that they're raising kids in a new environment. So values are becoming convoluted, extremely important to really reflect on that. However, many second and third generations are now reinforcing healthy boundaries and holding people accountable because they grew up here, right? They grew up here in the sense that they are raising the families in the same environment they grew up in. So they can decipher between what is healthy, not healthy, doesn't have to get convoluted. They're able to keep their values more intact, right? The goal is to raise awareness and stop the trauma bonding, to speak about trauma bonding, to bring it up. Like, hey, I think there's some trauma bonding here, right? A lot of people do not know what trauma bonding is. They've never heard of this, or they've heard of it, this terminology in passing, right? In passing. Again, it's not about where you grow up, right? It's about keeping your values intact, setting healthy boundaries. It's about speaking up and holding people accountable, keeping your distance if toxic behavior continues, not normalizing this type of behavior, not normalizing hot and cold relationships, not normalizing people's personalities changing at events, and then you're perplexed as to, wait a second, are my certain family members good-hearted or are they not? What's going on? You know what's going on? They're disconnected from themselves. They are just acting in a robotic manner dependent on the environment. So at the funeral, they're going to show up as the martyr. At family crisis, they're going to be there, right? But then at the wedding, they're going to be like, oh my goodness, what's going on? Let's show the favoritism and let's exclude and let's do this, right? So what's the solution? Learn to protect your peace. Many of us didn't learn how to protect ourselves in such dynamics. Consciously choose to not participate in it anymore. Not everything needs a reaction. Don't coddle the dysfunction. However, don't overreact. Don't overreact. Such families crave drama. Remember, it helps with that trauma bonding cycle. Don't be part of that trauma bonding cycle. Pull your children out of that trauma bonding cycle. Because they're going to continue to behave this way until they get help. They will continue to behave this way until they go through deep healing, right? And if you do engage with them, right, to keep good ties, do it in a arm's length manner, right? You don't have to be best friends. Next, self-reflect and ask yourself, which family member did I trauma bond with, right? You need to self-reflect on that as well. And then don't play the victim role anymore. Let's stop the cycle together. Don't play the victim role anymore. Let's stop the cycle together. And lastly, remind yourself that in life, we have three big purposes, right? Obviously, to worship God. Secondly, to do good acts of service, do good deeds, but not at the expense of us. Next, to share our creative juices. And last, to let go of our ego and others' ego. So you're going to do a lot of letting go of your ego and others' ego when you go visit these particular family members, right? But remember, when you do that, it's a spiritual experience because you gain more wisdom, right? It makes you more powerful. It allows you to spread more goodness into the world, right? And remember who you are and continue being your awesome self and spread the light. All right, guys, I hope this was helpful. Again, let's stop trauma bonding and dysfunction in extended family dynamics between first, second, and third generations within every culture. All right, guys, take care of yourself. You guys are amazing. You rock. I'm so proud of you. Share this work because it will heal families. It will break toxic cycles.